Sorry about that. We've been enjoying the holiday season, but this is episode 98, start of the new year. And sometimes the new year doesn't always start off right for some people. Stephen Kelly, his mom, is her residence was in Pacific, Missouri, and was among the eastern part of Missouri, the towns there that and cities that kind of got flooded due to some of the recent weather that had happened. Um, think the Great Flood of '93, but for a brief moment. Except it's still just enough to damage homes, belongings, and everything else. He started a GoFundMe crowdfunding initiative to raise enough money to help her replace her things and move her closer to the Kansas City area, closer to some family, including him. Um, and we'll include that link in the show notes if you want to help out a little bit. If not, feel free to spread that link as far as you can. Um, but I'll go ahead and give it out now as well. GoFundMe.com/87HAM7EC. That was relatively easy. Um,
Only about 8 characters or so.
Yep, 87 ham 7 EC. So that's pretty good. Um, it's and hopefully it's enough to get her eventually moved, because she's in a shelter at the moment, and she has a pet that's at a vet's office, nowhere else to go at the moment. And yes, she's retired, but some people call it a fixed income. I refer to it as pretty much a static income. It's limited, basically, and that's not going to be nearly enough to get her out of there. And Stephen Kelly, he doesn't have the resources to plop down a chunk of money all at once to do that. Some friends have already helped out. I intend to help out when I get paid next week. But other than that, we'll move right along, because though 2016's already starting out to be rather interesting, which we'll probably get to in future episodes. Spoiler alert, kind of hint. It's one of those things in current events that makes me want to just scream at all sides of a particular debate, because they're all acting like idiots. But I'll leave that there for the moment. Because 2015, for me personally, saw quite a bit of transition. I was living in a small town, and frankly, in a relationship that wasn't healthy for either myself or the other person. So I moved back up here. I eventually switched back to cable-based internet, charter, and everything else. And Shaggy graduated, got a job, moved to Columbia, which is kind of a more metropolitan environment than Warrensburg, but
I feel like it's where the city meets the country. Because just I can go up the roadways and there's a Orscheln. So if I wanted to buy feed or something, or
right,
rent some farm equipment, they got some smaller stuff there, gardening, and then I can go to the west side of town towards Kansas City, and there's a BMW dealership, there's a Mercedes dealership. So there's a mix of everything in Columbia. It's not just metropolitan. It's a wide array of all kinds of weird stuff. It's weird, and I like it.
Doesn't MU have a? Do they have an agricultural department?
Yeah, they
Ags.
have a very big agricultural department. A lot of ag students from when I was in high school, I knew they were looking at MU as one of the options. I think Springfield's program is a little better than MU's because MU is kind of a bigger school and they focus on more than just agriculture.
Right.
They do have a decent program from what I've heard.
And I apologize for momentary yawning and everything else. I have not been to bed yet. um, but let's see. You know, I gave up a bunch of stuff, gained a bunch of stuff back. I still have that Raspberry Pi, which we all know about, the $5 Pi that was released not so long ago. And it's just been an interesting year.
Yeah, it is in many senses.
Um, the end of the year was saw a tragedy in the free and open source software space, though. Ian Murdoch is no longer with us. Nobody really knows exactly what happened, whether he was truly brutalized by police or he was simply, for whatever reason, losing his mind. Nobody knows. What we do know is that he started a distribution called Debian, and he went on to work for several companies and do quite well. He, from what little I've looked at, his family has requested, privacy. So, nobody's going to know anything probably for quite some time. It's just the nature of it all. And so I wouldn't be surprised about details coming out later down the road, but for now, it's just speculation, and I'd rather not speculate at this point. It sucks that he's gone. Were it not for Debian, we wouldn't have Ubuntu. Or
Ubuntu, we wouldn't have Linux Mint. There wouldn't be Steam OS. We wouldn't have many other things that are based off of Debian. Raspberry Pi Foundation, their primary distribution, Raspbian, is based on Debian. So,
yeah, if
the implications of that not happening would, our entire future would be completely different. In terms of the tech world, I'm not sure how far-reaching that would be, but it would be pretty widespread, I'd imagine.
Yeah, he contributed a lot, and my heart goes out to his family. I just hope they're doing all right. But it's just certain shocking things, shocking tragedies, and a lot of bit of emotion surrounding them. We've seen these stories throughout last year. It's been rather unique, to say the least. We also saw a couple of heroes fall too, or a couple of celebrities, treated as heroes in the past, kind of fall too. From Jared Fogle to now, Bill Cosby, kind of just, even if Cosby's, even if Cosby's acquitted, any career he was attempting to have at the moment is pretty much over.
Well, I don't think he's done much of anything in the last 5 years, decade probably. His real big thing was he started out in stand-up and then eventually winded up on a sitcom, and that's I think that's probably what was his springboard into popularity. And
Right.
there's
Like,
debate circling the whole circling the whole situation with him being possibly acquitted and the whole trials and everything about his personality and then his TV personality.
oh yeah, and because like there were plans for him making somewhat of a comeback, and it pretty much got ruined. So it's just, and then there was Jared Fogle and all the jokes about footlongs, and it's just like, oh man, it's just, and that's why I'm getting to the point where I'm like, maybe we shouldn't be putting people on pedestals in the first place, but it took me this many years to realize this or to start realizing that. So, but it wasn't all bad. Gay marriage was recognized by the Supreme Court. We had the return of Star Wars that broke some box office records. For the first time in over 30 years, the Kansas City Royals won the World Series. They made it to 2 series in a row. That's pretty impressive. And you got to tour System 76's headquarters. You won their Superfan contest, creating a meme.
Close to a couple months ago now.
Yeah.
2 months.
Oh yeah.
That was pretty fun. I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
And because of that, I'm now starting to think about, seeing what I can budget for from over there at the moment. Just keeping an eye on what they have available. It's been very interesting. We've, water on Mars, we've enough proof that show that there's possibility of liquid water on Mars. That chip computer being sold for $8. The Raspberry Pi Foundation one-upping them by releasing the Pi Zero for $5. And I think from one of the related magazines, there was a Pi Zero for free along with it.
The Pi, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
That's how I found out about it on Google Plus, was from that group, from the Raspberry Pi Foundation, sharing the Magpie's post.
Oh yeah, and so AMD and NVIDIA kind of doing their thing with video cards. Oh, we'll be right back. Oh, you're back.
No, I was just yelling at my dogs.
You have AMD Fury X, NVIDIA Maxwell 2nd generation. Of course, of course, we had some missteps. Me buying this little thing, ZTE device for mobile hotspot through Straight Talk. It was GSM. It's GSM based. Only problem is it barely functioned. Turns out there's nothing wrong with the device. It's the intermediary providing the service, data service, that's messing up on their end. And it's something that, from what I've researched, Straight Talk cannot fit it. That company, there's nothing they can do. It's out of their hands. The only way it can, you could possibly have all your websites working besides Google.com is if you change the MTU size to a lower size than 1500, which most people aren't going to, only power users are going to do that, and that's going to affect other services like FTP because the packet size is smaller. Or somehow, some way, find a way to disable LTE on this thing, and then it'll work. It's just, the pricing of their data plans was tempting, but if I can't access a site without hitting refresh 20 times, then we've got a problem. So
sounds like a poorly executed marketing / device sale.
Because like from what I've looked at, it's technically it's not on the end of the device. The device is doing what's supposed to be doing. It's an intermediate. Yeah, an intermediary is what basically provides data access. They use AT&T's towers, obviously, but Straight Talk's turning around buying, allotments of data from this intermediary company, who, for whatever reason, has some network settings somewhere that's just messed up.
I'd say there's probably a combination of bandwidth limitation and just some errors. Sounds like it wasn't set up properly.
No.
If it's a third-party intermediary, I mean, to me, that doesn't sound like such a good idea in the first place, unless you're wanting some sort of security between you and the primary provider. It's just going to complicate things for no reason, and it's probably a combination of businesses working together to try to provide a service at a lower cost, which is what Straight Talk's goal is, along with the intermediary trying to gain an extra penny in transaction, being the middleman.
Because, if I had gotten the CDMA-based hotspot, chances are it probably would have worked a lot better at only 3G speeds. I could have gotten the, red map version of this, which basically would have piggybacked off of Verizon's towers instead, and it probably would have worked just fine. It's just this full-blown GSM-based, when it hits LTE, bam, you're screwed for the most part. And it got so aggravating I quit using it. Basically, if I tried using it again, I would probably go through the hassle of the phone calls and everything else and say, look, I don't care about LTE at this moment. Is there a way you can send an update to this device to disable it? Because if it's disabled, it'll be a lower speed, I understand, but at least everything will actually load.
Yeah, you won't suffer from the connection loss. I'm you said it piggybacks off of AT&T towers, correct?
Yeah.
As an AT&T customer, I haven't honestly had any issues, but the interaction is with the primary provider. I don't think there's any middleman per se involved, unless I'm hopping to some other tower through roaming, which I'm hardly ever roaming. But I have noticed on occasion when I'm on LTE that my service will just die. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, I have to try and refresh a page. Eventually, it finally gets a request through and then it's functioning fine. Why? I don't know. It might be an AT&T system, and that might be something related to what's going on with your hotspot. But I don't know. It's hard to say.
Because from what I researched, it's nothing that ZTE themselves can do about it. High up technicians and Straight Talk or whatever, they claim there's nothing they can do about it. It's nothing they can actually fix. But it's it was a bad investment, but I live and I learn. If I were to get honestly, I'm debating about leaving Straight Talk and going with Verizon at some point, because where I visit, I'll likely have coverage, and I miss having a hotspot in the first place. Then I really want a Note 5 anyway, but we'll leave. But I like the return of Star Wars. I don't like the debate that's going back and forth regarding the Second Amendment, because everybody's too emotionally driven on it. Which is also, by the way, why I'm irritated about what's going on the West Coast at the moment.
Talking about the situation in Oregon.
Yes, I'm sorry. I failed to see how it's an actual attack on an entire state when people, even with firearms, are occupying a building that was long ago abandoned and was left unlocked. I'm sorry, that's a sign of bureaucratic waste in the first place, just leaving the building there instead of just having it knocked down. Yeah, they can make the excuse that, well, it's in case a traveler gets lost in a snowstorm. Out in the middle of nowhere? Come on.
Weirder things have happened out in the middle of nowhere. I don't think we have to try to prove that one.
and by the way, those who follow in certain circles, the Stuart Rhodes, he's basically the face of the Oath Keepers. They do not officially sanction or support what's going on at the moment, based on the fact that the members of the Hammond family do not want their help. They voluntarily turn themselves in to authorities. So if you don't want somebody's help, you don't force your help upon them. But that's all I'll say on that one. That was a giant mess to start off the year, but it wasn't all horrible. We had political correctness, the exact opposite. Donald, there shall be hell to pay. Trump, to get it, to pay. And there's backlash on that happening on that too, in my view. But
frankly, I'm still surprised that he's even in the presidential race.
I'm waiting for him to just drop out and suddenly magical book deal happening afterwards. But
president,
right. But I will say one of my more favorite episodes was when Curtis and I were talking about, Curtis was talking about wargaming, where you take the models out and paint them and create the scenery, and whole storylines involved, and creating landscapes. That sounded like fun, and the way he talked about it, it's something that multiple generations can enjoy together, which is actually pretty nifty. That was one of my favorite episodes to do. But you, gaming wise, had some favorite games as well.
Yeah, and I put them in order because based on my feelings about them. I decided to pick out of all the games that have come out the last year, and then I picked 5 games, my top 5 games for 2015. And there's only one on this list that I haven't actually played, but I do want to play. I'm basing this off of kind of like what I've read, what I've heard, and then my own experience from playing the games. And the order is not necessarily in terms of the quality of the game, because I think they're all really good quality games, but it's more of how they were executed, the overall style of the game, and everything. So, anyway, here's the 5 games that I decided to pick. Life is Strange, Batman Arkham Knight, which finalized the Arkham trilogy. I'm not including Batman Arkham Origins because that game was trash. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Fallout 4, and then Star Wars Battlefront.
You mentioned the Batman, the one of the Batmans being a garbage game. Was it because he couldn't jump?
No, he was able to jump in all the games. It was done by a different developer, and they took a different spin on the series. The first 2 in the series, Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, were done by Rocksteady, and then Arkham Origins, which took place before the original two games, was done by a different developer, and I forgot who at the moment, but it was just not as good as the other 2 in terms of story, and then some of the things that led up to the plot that starts the first game just didn't quite make sense.
Because one of those games I had heard that, like, okay, you run to a ledge in a designated area, he'll jump to the next part, but you can't jump in the air at will. And a friend of mine kept basically complaining about it, and people were just, counter trolling him, and he trolled right back. Mario's a fat plumber, and yet Italian plumber, yet he can jump. That sort of.
I don't remember if there is a jump mechanic. I always used too many gadgets. If it's a Batman game, you can't just not have gadgets. So, I mean, even if there wasn't the ability to jump, there's always a way to circumvent that. So, in terms of gameplay, all of them were very, very, very good. And Origins introduced some new things that still kept it fun. I mean, it was still a fun game to play. It's just in terms of the overall style and the flow of the plot, it just didn't match up with the first 2 games, and it just kind of screwed things up.
Oh, wow. So Life is Strange. Tell us more about that one.
I picked this game because I absolutely love this game, and it's a different take on video gaming in general. It's developed by Square Enix, so it's a really iconic developer. It's a game that's split up into episodes, kind of like what would be a season for a TV series. You have episode 1 through 5 for this game, and it's entirely story driven. There's not much action to it. There's some puzzle parts that make you kind of solve this puzzle or whatnot, and its primary focus is decision making. And every decision that you make has an effect on the rest of the story. And it ends up leading into this giant snowball of cataclysmic events based on your decisions. It kind of flutters on the butterfly effect. I used flutter on purpose, yes. That was kind of a sort of an attempt at a pun. But I thought it was very interesting, and honestly, it was one of the most emotionally engaging video games I had played in a long time. So I thought it was really good, and that's why it deserved the top place on my list. That's why I said it first.
Well, we know about Fallout 4. I've heard of Star Wars Battlefront, but what's your Wild 3 Wild Hunt you haven't played yet? You said it's because you read so many good things about it.
Yes, it's a similar style to like Fallout 4 and Skyrim and other games of the RPG genre that are open world, lets you kind of do whatever. Even Batman Arkham Knight falls into the open world kind of scenario, except Arkham Knight's not so much of an RPG as it is an action adventure game. It follows the story of Gerald, who's a witch hunter, and basically, I can't remember the timeline between this and the previous game. It's actually an adaptation from a book series. A friend of mine had actually read the books, and crazy stuff happens in it. So between hearing about what happens in the books and then how well they adapted that to a video game series, which this is the third one in the series. I think The Witcher, the first one, came out in 2008. Don't quote me on that. And then The Witcher 2 came out, I think, 2010. I have both of those, and I played a little bit of the first one. I just can't. The controls were a little bit funky. But in terms of story progression and the amount of story content, it's supposed to be very, very good. And from almost all of the video gaming sites I've read and from bunches of friends that I've talked to, it's up there. So I decided to throw it on the list.
And Star Wars Battlefront, I've heard of it, but what type of game is it?
Take the Star Wars look and feel and universe and plaster that on Battlefield 3. Or Battlefield 3 or Battlefield 4 multiplayer.
Okay.
There's no story to it. There's no campaign, nothing like that from the original Star Wars Battlefront, Star Wars Battlefront 2 from like a decade ago. And the thing I liked about it was that it really does a very good job of dropping you into this universe and making you feel like you're inside Star Wars, like you are a stormtrooper, and all of these things are happening. Like you can take participate in the battles on Hoth, the Battle of Jakku, which takes place before The Force Awakens. You can also drop yourself into the Battle of Endor. Let's see. There's a couple other things in there, but it also gives you the opportunity to pilot snow speeders, AT-ATs, AT-STs. It's a very, very, very fun game, but there is no story to it, which is the unfortunate part. But in terms of gameplay, it's very unique and very, very fun. I did thoroughly enjoy it. I'm going to have to buy it eventually. I got to play the beta for a while.
I will just include one game in the category of one of the most messed up things I've ever seen. My good old sister gifted it to me on Steam, and it's called "Do You Still Shower with Your Dad?"
I'm gonna have to look this one up.
It's in the style of 8-bit ish. You're basically a naked little kid running around matching up with the right dad as they're taking a shower. It's messed up, and
that is a little weird. Wow.
And right before each stage, you have dads giving weird, horrible puns and jokes. It's just like
dad jokes.
Yeah. And the funny part is when you go into the settings and one of those settings is nudity, you think, oh, I can turn that off. No, it's variations of, basically have it turned on. It's yeah, or and I think hell yes or something like that. You can show let it show particular reproductive organs. I'll leave it at that. Um, allow puddles to appear, as in puddles of water, that if you run over them, you will start sliding around the bathroom floor, shower floor. It's just like, wow, what? Oh, my sister likes playing jokes like that on me. Um, but yeah, it's just like, what in the world? Oh, but no matter which team you choose, you have to match the kid up to the dad in terms of color and all that good stuff. So, yeah, that was disturbing. This that, but you posted a Kotaku link, and two of the games you mentioned were on their list of top games too. Life is Strange, Metal Gear Solid 5 was mentioned.
I would have thrown that in there too if I had expanded. I debated on expanding my list to 10, but I don't think I would have actually filled the rest of it because there's a lot of games that have been released last year and then that are going to be released this year that are.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, one of the ones that they included on the list, which I haven't played it yet, and I played some of the Assassin's Creed series, but I feel like Ubisoft is just kind of given up on trying to make something new because they took the Far Cry franchise and then they're stretching it out really thin. Assassin's Creed is already way too thin. They started out in 2008 and they've released at least one game every year, so that's a minimum of 7 games. Plus, you've had a couple of mobile adaptations, handheld video games for like the DS and Game Boy Advance and stuff like that. And it's just why? Just stop. Ubisoft, finish the series. It's a good series. Don't get me wrong. It's just that they're stretching out so thin, just so they can squeeze so much more money out of people, just like EA. I'll step off of my soapbox.
Yeah, a lot of that's frustrating, and it's not just the whole mobile segment where some people may have an issue. It's Kojima was treated horribly by Konami in the end, not even allowed to go travel to pick up his own award, which I found horrible and didn't make any sense. But
the treatment that he got from Konami was just absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, I guess we could probably talk about this again with Curtis because I know he has pretty strong feelings about Konami, and I would honestly love to hear him. But it's utterly horrible how they've treated it. Every big gaming journalism site out on the internet has said something in a negative affect to Konami. So if every gaming site out there and pretty much all of the gamer population or gaming population is thinking what you did was crappy, it's probably really bad. So.
Oh yeah. But this last year was better for video games than the year before, and I've kind of noticed, like I said, the certain overzealous quote activist type. There's now a backlash against that because people are getting tired of having their whole lives politicized. They just want to enjoy their favorite hobby and be left alone and not bothered. But also noticing, buffoonery running for the Oval Office and But you know, like I said, 2015 is kind of a transition to this year, and this year I see as a year of opportunity for a lot of people for many reasons. They just got to know where to look. But I think it's kind of a humble episode. I think we're at a point where we can wrap things up a little bit, and keep some of the stuff we've talked about in mind, because those are definitely there's definitely future episodes based on some of the stuff that we mentioned.
I mean, for a couple of things that we can just throw out there right now, we did a podcast a while back about the announcement of Fallout 4 and Bethesda's first ever E3 appearance. And so now that Fallout 4 has come out, and then I know Curtis has put some time into it, and I put at least 90 hours. My Steam account says otherwise because I accidentally left it running for 48 hours.
Oh, whoops.
But so I'm going to have to give my 2 cents on why I feel the way that I do and why it wasn't my top pick for games of 2015. And then we can also get in more depth about Star Wars and our feelings on it. Maybe a spoiler-free review, maybe not, since most people have probably already seen it by now. So there's that, and then there's all kinds of other topics we can talk about in the future.
And how much is Fallout 4 again?
It's still $60 at the moment. It was on sale on Steam for 17 or 20% off, like $45, $50, I think.
Wow. That's what I get for procrastinating, but that's all right. Do they have any mods for it at the moment, or?
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of mods for it. I figured we can probably just do a Fallout 4 themed episode because they brought. I don't know. I think we mentioned this before. If not, I've mentioned it, or Stephen Kelly might have even mentioned it. There's a mod that's out for Skyrim that was out a while ago that turns all of the dragons in Skyrim into Macho Man Randy Savage. And I'm not sure if this is the same guy, but they turned Deathclaws into Macho Man Randy Savage. And Thomas the Tank Engine, which is a similar mod from Skyrim that turned the dragons into Thomas the Tank Engine. I already saw one article on it today, and I saw another article on the Macho Man Randy Savage, and it's great.
Oh. But anyway, entertain yourself, educate yourself, empower yourself. I'm Thomas.
And I'm Shaggy.
And we'll see you next time.
See you guys later.